Hello and welcome to Socialist Night Live. It's quite an interesting night. Things are going on at the moment, so we don't know what to really expect with this show. Things could be happening as we speak, but it's going to be a little bit Labour Party based tonight, given that there've been elections on and given that there have been some developments there. So normally we like to focus on broad concepts of socialism, but tonight we'd had planned to do a little bit of electoralism, and we're going to do it tonight. So we have some special guests with us. We have Kath Davis, who's come to speak to us about the local elections. So congratulations to Kath, who's just been it's reselected, isn't it, in
Yep.
North Tyneside? So congratulations to you. Really pleased to see you re-elected. And we have also got. I'll come to you in a second for a full introduction. We've also got Mark Rattigan, who some of you may recognise from coming on Political Unmuted before. Absolutely brilliant person and a former pupil of mine, which always makes me swell with pride. It really, really top lad, and from Hartlepool as well. So we're going to be discussing what's happened in Hartlepool, the fallout from that, and what Mr. Starmer has done and who he's decided to blame. I'm sorry for laughing, but I have a theory that the right of the Labour Party will always turn on itself, and it tends to do that, and it's been quite ridiculous that he's decided to take the blame for something by blaming other people. He's done that again. Also, we've got Laura. Hello, Laura.
Hello, I'm back.
Yeah, nice to have you back, and we're back because we had a week off last week. So this week we are back, and pretty tired after the campaign, but I think we've got a little bit more time on our hands. But anyway, I'm going to get to our guests. So, Kath, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and where you've been elected today, and and then we'll go into a little bit on a little bit of thoughts about the local elections.
Hi, thanks, Paul. I've been re-elected to Preston Ward in North Tyneside. I've been the councillor there for, well, it's actually 9 years because we've had, with last year's election being postponed. So we went in, also we had a by-election at the same time, which, because Kate Osborne, my colleague, she's now MP for Jarrow. So there was that by-election as well. And it was fairly, I think it was quite confusing because lots of candidates. We had two Labour candidates, and I had a great running mate, Helen Smith. And we've run a really positive sort of grassroots campaign, getting them, talking to residents, talking about the problems, getting out there. We used to do, when we first started, we used to do like litter picks and say to people, if you want to come along and have a chat while we're out. And that was really working really well. And then once we got to where we could meet people, we started to do the door knocking, but obviously we were restricted before then. But we've kept going with that. And what we've been doing is focusing on, say there's been like a problem, there was some antisocial behaviour in one area, and we've got involved in that and listened to residents and got Kim McGuinness around and stuff like that. But it was actually like dealing with things as they were happening, and that was a really good response. But we were up against like a massive the Tories that really targeted this ward, because in the past, I mean, there was a there was an allegation of, like, because I'd liked a post for Rebecca Long Bailey's post, and there was an anti-Semitism. It was anyway. We had to deal with that. But what they did was they made a lot of that, and they had every single article they had was about me, and it was just constant pressure all the time. They had glossy magazines and things, and it was like lots of campaign literature was really personal and sort of trying to attack us on a personal basis. And I think with the COVID, like the wave of COVID, the injections, I think it's like made a real difference, and the Tory vote was just pushed up. And what's happened is that now the Tories actually sort of got the 3 years that I would have like ran for last year, and I've now got the by-election from Kate, so I've only got a year in, but we got there. I mean, we did really well, and Helen came third. You know, we were hoping that I'd maybe get the first position, and then Helen would come in, and we could campaign for her next year, but that's not going to be the case. So it was disappointing, but it was also good that we held the vote, and it was evident it was because we got amongst people and talked to people in the community, and we really focused on like you know, making sure people saw what we were doing, and wherever we went we had like our Labour t-shirts, you know, Labour t-shirts, Labour sweatshirts on, so that we could identify we were for Labour. I mean, at one point the Tories even wrote it like a Dear Carol letter, was like it was from a neighbour, saying they were this neighbour Carol, and addressing it to every household, pretending they were a neighbour, and then complaining about me as like a candidate and things. It was that kind of tactics that were going on, but then it'd have the imprint really small on the bottom, so you'd end up that was the kind of tactics they were deploying. We even had and I was going to show you, it was a leaflet that looked like a green leaflet. So it was like, but it was a Tory leaflet, and it was, we were constantly subjected to that. So I'm so pleased that we did so well in the current climate, because obviously the Labour vote is just tronched really, you know, it's like fell, but it's been really hard campaign, but it's taught us a lot of lessons about being amongst the community and the grassroots.
That's really important. I think the grassroots thing, just on the kind of smears that were put against you. I'm assuming that like most Labour members, you absolutely abhor anti-Semitism and any form of racism, and it just goes to show how dangerous these spurious allegations are. And I'm also assuming that to stand as a candidate, those allegations have been found to be untrue. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like I said, well, I mean, I abhor any form of racism and anti-Semitism. It was just something at that time that was picked up on, and something that would have been, should have been dealt with in a totally different way, but it wasn't. It was they meant to make a lot of it, which it was something like, it was, I actually deleted the like. It was a like on a friend's post that I didn't know about, and that was where it all came from. But it's it was really unfortunate, and you know, the press got hold of it and everything, and it was something that was like blown up out of all proportion. And like you say, I am you know, my life has been like it's been about like anti-racism, like not, you know, and any form of like oppression of other people because of their color, race, or creed, or of their sexuality or anything like that. And I found it really deeply upsetting. But what's happened is they've got onto this. But I don't think a lot of people who actually supported me took any notice of that. I think they just saw what we were doing in the community and my track record as a councillor. I think it wasn't so much that. I think it was the fact when I was on the doorstep, everyone was saying, we want change, and I would say to them, well, we've still got a Tory government in after 11 years, and they couldn't see the connect between the Tories with the cuts, and the councils were trying to operate in that climate that didn't seem to have that connect. And it was another mantra, like get Brexit done. It was time for change, and they didn't have this connect, and they were really good at this. And it was like highlighting on like trying to make me some sort of like person who, you know, wasn't like well, untrustworthy or whatever. And then at the same time, you know, going the three things I went on was potholes, the council tax, and the mayor's car, and you know, which were all really spurious things, because the potholes are on a rolling programme. The mayor's car isn't the mayor's car. I mean, she uses her own car, and it's a civic car. And also, was it the magazine the council magazine. It was things like that. But what it was doing was just sort of like as if we were making good out of, like these, these things in the council, rather than like us trying to tackle like how our a budget, trying to make budgets and trying to like keep services open on like less and less money each year. And I don't think we sent that message across enough. And it was very easy. I think the whole country, there's this like mantra about having change in councils, and I think it's about talking to people and that grassroots thing about saying to people, this is not the case. It's more about how the government, it's central government who are setting these budgets. And I think people had a lack of some people had a lack of understanding of that. Yeah.
I think that's going to resonate with a lot of. It already has resonated with a lot of our viewers and listeners, and the panel nodding along there. This idea of vote for change, vote for the same. It's I'm currently like reading 1984, and it's that double think, isn't it? It's that like that's where we are. I think vote for change, vote for the Conservatives. What? It doesn't make any sense. But some really really cracking comments coming in. Ruth Davidson, who is brilliant, coming in with a lot of a very very a resounding thanks for you. For all your work, so thanks for that, Kath, and thanks for those comments, Ruth. A couple of comments, I believe about Angela Rayner so far, like talking about how she's performed in the role so far, and what's happened to her. So we'll speak about that a little bit later. And we've also had some results coming in. So I think Eddie Adam has just been elected in Sedgefield. That's one of in our ward. Eddie Adam has, but the other candidate was unfortunately unsuccessful in that one. But Eddie, I'm sure he'll stand by his socialist principles and do us proud there. So well done, Eddie. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to Mark. Now, Mark, you were nodding along, really, really, massive agreement with a lot of what Kath was saying there. Now, you're a member of Hartlepool CLP, so people generally tend to know about what's happened in Hartlepool. Some people may not. So what are your feelings on what's gone on in Hartlepool, and why it is that the people of Hartlepool have decided to go for Conservatives, and you're in there, you're on the ground, you know what's going on. So let's go for it.
Well, it's very good to be on, but first of all, and we need channels like this to push the word of socialism out to the people, because not a lot of people know what socialism is and what it can do for people. So thanks for that, Paul, and thanks for that, Laura. Yeah, it's an interesting one, Hartlepool, because obviously it's come into a lot of media attention lately. Normally, it's one of them areas that just gets pushed aside on a general election night, as definitely Labour. In other parts of the country, that's definitely Tory. Hartlepool's changed a lot over the years, and it's especially in recent years, where we've, in my area just alone, where we've had 3 new housing estates being built, and a lot of some houses are going for £500,000 in this area. So there's been a lot of change, and a lot of change at the council level as well, because obviously we've seen a lot of Labour lost the majority in Hartlepool a few years back, and they've never got it back since. But yeah, it is difficult. It's a difficult one to understand, Hartlepool, because it's got a lot of areas that are very wealthy and a lot of areas that are very deprived, and a lot of areas that need a lot of attention. But the CLP decided to pick, or it was chosen for them, a candidate called Paul Williams, and he's a doctor, and I've got every respect for him for being a doctor, every respect for him working in the NHS, like my own mother does. I've got every respect for healthcare professionals and the work they've done, especially over the pandemic, and they haven't been treated very well at all, like teachers, to be honest with you, haven't been treated very well at all. And we didn't get a say. That's the kind of the bottom and short of it. We didn't get a say, and whether that's the CLP problem or it's a national Labour problem, we didn't get a say. And there was a lot of people that were, unhappy about that, to be honest. And I was one of them myself. And I don't want to point blame at anybody. I don't want to, name call or anything like that. But it is the problem when you're a Democratic Party and you stand on them values and you don't give your own members a say. That is a problem, and that was a problem for me, and that's why I had to sit out this election, unfortunately, and not go on campaign because it was very hard to accept that we didn't get that say. And the other thing is the Brexit issue. This is a town that voted 70%, 69% leave. Whether you agree with that or you don't agree with that, you have to accept that result. And there's a lot of people in this town that are very, very passionate about the idea of leaving. Now, a lot of people will say, "Well, we've already left. The Brexit got done." Yes, it did. It did get done in a way. It's not finished yet. There's a lot of things still to do with Brexit, but it lives on. That vote lives on in people's minds, and you can't pick a Remainer in a Brexit town and expect to do well. It doesn't work that way. So that's the other issue, and the other one for me especially is that we need to pick a candidate that's local, that the people know, that people see, that there's been in the council or been running a business. We didn't get that, and that upset a lot of people, including me. So there's many reasons why we didn't win. And our vote, our share of the vote, and the votes that have gone to us peaked in 2017 with Jeremy Corbyn, over 20,000, 21,000, and it's declined ever since. It declined to 15,000 and now to 8,500. So there's a reason why we're not connecting with voters. There's a reason why we're not appealing to voters. And I speak to people every day who are disillusioned with Labour. They don't know what Labour stands for. They don't know where the vision is, where Labour wants to take the country, what it wants to do with the country. And that's a big problem for us, and we need to be winning places like Hartlepool, because if we're not winning towns like this and we're not appealing to these voters, we have got a big problem.
Absolutely, and you've managed to get that from top to bottom. Now, there's a comment there that I want to bring you in on here from Jake Ratcliffe, which says, "I knew we were going to lose Hartlepool as soon as Williams invited Mandelson along to the campaign." So we discussed this a little bit before we came on air. We discussed our thoughts on Peter Mandelson, and obviously, I worked in Hartlepool at the school that you were at. We know how people feel about Mandelson. So what are your thoughts on that when they brought in Mandelson?
Well, I first saw this when I saw a video being put out by Paul Williams, and he was described as being well respected in the town. That was the title of the video. I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't believe it for the simple reason that I was out with a Labour person in 2017 in the local elections, and the amount of dislike of Peter Mandelson in this town is people know it. People say, so it's not like the CLP didn't know, and that was what shocked me, because it's well known that people don't like, for right or wrong, people don't like Peter Mandelson in this town. And I couldn't understand why we would invite him on the campaign trail in Hartlepool to speak to voters in this town. It didn't make any sense to me. I'm still shocked. I can't tell you why, because I'm shocked. I didn't know about it beforehand. I only learned it like everybody else learned it. And I can't understand why they described him in such a way. It baffles me.
Now, I'm aware that, Kath, you have to go relatively shortly. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring in Laura briefly on this on Mandelson, and then we'll go back to Kath so that we can hear a little bit more from her before she
Just gonna
goes.
turn the light on because I'm
Yeah,
seem
tell
to
like
be.
you've been fading away, fading away. So Laura, you're obviously Peter Mandelson is a well-respected figure, is he not? Like I've seen him with all sorts of people. I've seen him with Jeffrey Epstein, well-known businessman and paedophile, sex traffic runner. That these are respectable people to get involved in your campaign, are they not?
I think it's just pure jealousy because other people don't have those types of friends. Um, I mean, come on, dear me, Mandelson. And do you know what? I think everybody from Hartlepool saw that advert, and I saw it, and I was like, "What?" And I'm not even from Hartlepool, and all of my friends from Hartlepool were like, "We just hate him." And I think what's happening is the Labour Party seem to be harken back to the Blair years. Yes, we won a government during Blair's reign, but times have moved on since then. And since then, people have seen the issues with that particular government. And also, times in general just aren't the same as they were then. But it seems like the Labour Party are living in their own little bubble where they think, right, let's go back to those heady days. We'll do all the same things, and we'll win and we'll be brilliant. And it just showed a complete lack of self-awareness. Carton Mandelson out of all people. That as soon as that happened, I was like, right, that's it. We're done. We're absolutely done. These people don't have a clue about normal people. They've never walked around Hartlepool and spoken to normal people. If they think that this is the way to go. And I know Angela Rayner, I know we'll talk about her in detail later. I know she was the campaigns coordinator. If it was her decision to bring Mandelson, then I think it was probably the right decision to get a shot of her from that job. I don't know if that was the case, but dear me, what an own goal that was.
One of my favourite Peter Mandelson stories is the time that I was told this by people who had been there when it happened. Apparently, he went into a fish and chip shop in Hartlepool, and to try and endear himself as they do. You know how they buy fish and chips the same way that Starmer was having pints with blokes. In his massively partridge style. It's like that. You'd visit a local fish and chip shop and, oh, look at me, I'm a man of the people in the fish and chip shop. And he walked in and he was like, what's that in that little pot? Is it guacamole? A green mushy substance in a chip shop that he obviously frequents a lot. That was guacamole in the 90s in Hartlepool. So this is.
Do you want to clarify that it was indeed mushy peas, just in case anybody else watching doesn't know what mushy green stuff is in a fish and chip shop up here?
I think people who watch our channel would know what mushy peas are, but I try and avoid the term. You know me.
And I do know, yeah.
I hate peas. I have a real problem. So, Kath, is anything Mark saying resonating with you there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we in North Tyneside here, we've still got a Labour administration, and we've gained seats. We've booked the trend, but I think we're in danger of we've got branches where I would say there were like dead branches because it's just nobody gets involved, and that it's like a bit like you're describing, Mark, about Hartlepool. You just expect they vote, and I think we've just got to start working these branches because people. I mean, I walked around. I don't know if you've heard of the Meadowell. Well, it was the Meadowell riots many years ago. And I talked to people there, and they just said, everyone forgets us. Nobody's bothered about us, and the turnout in those areas is like 29%, and nobody wants to vote, nobody gets involved. But when we had the Brexit vote, they all came out and they all voted like Brexit. And I think you've got to, you can't leave people behind, and that's what we're guilty of. Just what Mark's describing, because you've got when people are part of the process, they'll accept it, but you can't just like what Mark said is just sort of expect people just to accept what's given, not without having a voice. And that's the thing now with social media and with all of these other forms of like communication. you know, the people will go, and they won't stay in one. They won't be so partisan, and we've got to be really careful about that and get the message out there. And I think it's exactly what I said before, grassroots. And that's what we'll continue to do. But, you know, I think as a Labour Party, we've got to make sure that we're not taking these areas for granted, and we've got those areas in our constituencies, because these people will vote, and they'll start to turn that the Tory vote has gone up in a lot of these areas, you know. And I just think as well, my personal is to have PR. I think that's a way forward for us as well, because I mean, like for instance in Whitley Bay there, we won that seat, but the Greens vote was like, it was substantially increased. They were second, and you know, you've got to accept that, you know, that other people have got to be part of that as well. I mean, I'm running for the NEC for the northern seat, the female seat at the moment, and I just think there needs to be more voice from our unions as well, because the unions need to step up. And you know, I'm with Unison, and I just feel that these big unions need to be getting to their members as well. You know, it needs to be a whole thing. Working with the unions, working with the councils, working with the party, the Labour Party, to get to change how this is happening. Because, you know, I mean, I saw Laura Piddock yesterday on the news, and she was just brilliant, you know, saying about people are voting Tory thinking it's the right way, but we know ourselves it's not. In a year's time, you know, that the wheels are going to fall off here, you know, and he can't wallpaper over the cracks with these £800 wallpaper very much longer, because you know, there will be rises in unemployment. People will see that they're having I mean, at the moment I'm doing a care work job to see what it's like, and honestly I didn't realize how bad, there's 2 million care workers, and I didn't realize how bad care work was until I started doing this. I can't believe it's a private organization. The other week I worked 15 hours and I got £97 after tax and national insurance. You know, and these are, and I'm working with women who are working from 6:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night, and they get breaks in between, and the shifts change all the time because other carers are just dropping out and they're having to take on more work, and they're working 10 days in a row for that. It is, you know, and that's what we need to be doing, is getting into these places and getting these people organized. They don't give you the numbers of the other carers that you're going to work with, so you don't organize. And you, and there's 2 million care workers. Unison should be in there, you know. But anyway, that's another story. But it's that kind of thing. But it's been great being invited to this chat. But I'll have to leave in a minute. But thank you.
Well, if you need to leave, well, what you go with our thanks. It's been really brilliant, and we know how tired everyone is following the local elections. So in a moment, we're probably going to move on to speaking about one of Unison's shining lights, which is Angela Rayner. One of their, like, you know, they've invested a lot of time and effort into Angela Rayner, and she's just been kicked out, apparently, and we'll talk about that very, very shortly. I just wanted to, as we say goodbye to Kath, and we keep things going, and I do a couple of technical things to make things look all pretty and what have you. But please feel free to say bye bye now, Kath. If
okay, bye bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks
Bye bye.
so much, Kath. Thank
And
you.
I'm going to ask Laura to kind of explain to us, you know, is this a problem with electoralism? Like, is this whole thing, like, we're talking about electoral politics, and one of the things we want to do in Socialist Think Tank is actually, and electoral politics isn't necessarily the answer to all of our problems here. And you've got like Mandelson and Blair. They were like, "Oh right, we tell you what, that's our core vote. We'll forget that. We'll focus somewhere else." And that led to the Southern. Or was it Southern Discomfort or something like that? That report that they did that said actually we're going to stick with people from the south rather than the north. So discuss that, Laura, while I put you back on screen.
Oh God, where to start with that, Paul? Dear me. Yeah. So there was, I think, the initial one was Southern Discomfort, and it was about how there was no need. Well, essentially, there was no need to come up here and lobby for votes and campaign because the North would always be red, and that's just who we were. Subsequently, Ian Lavery and John Trickett had sort of looked into that and written a different version called Northern Discomfort. And I think I've got those the right way around. Apologies to Ian and John if I haven't, which was explaining exactly why that wasn't the case. And this was before the last election, long before the last election. And lo and behold, it came true, you know, and we're seeing the effects of Brexit, the effects of what happens when you take us for granted up here. I think essentially we're not just people who'll vote a colour just because. And I think historically potentially we would have been, but that was in the days where Labour were Labour and they were for workers and they were for people who weren't elitists and they didn't get money from rich donors, and you know, and it was a proper for the people movement, quite socialist, democratic socialist, as is printed on our cards. And you know that the term the broad church I'm fine with if it is a broad church in that movement, which I think the Labour Party should be. You know, you can be extremely left, you can be left, and you can be bordering towards centre. But that whole conversation, left or right, centre, doesn't mean anything anymore in terms of politics because since Tony Blair, we moved so far towards the centre that then became left. These people here, us, we never moved, and now we're seen as far right Trotskyist thugs, you know. But we've never moved. We've been in the same place the whole time. It's everybody else who's moving. And so the Labour Party now is still going, well, this is how we win, though. We win votes by looking at these people and say, those people already had a home. Those people have the Tories. If you want to be Tory light, you're not going to win votes back from Tories. Tories will vote Tories. That's just the way it is. What we need to do is re-engage with the people. And Keir Starmer said this himself. We need to re-engage with the people. His method of re-engagement was to sack a bunch of people, you know, not admit your wrongdoing, look at your mistakes and come out and speak to people honestly. And I think a lot of work needs to be done. I, for example, really want to speak to all of these people in the North who've voted Tory, even if it's for the first time in their local council, to find out why, not to have an argument and tell them why they're wrong, because that's their opinion. I really want to find out why, and I'm worried that the Labour Party don't care why, and that they're just going to continue down this path of neoliberalism, bringing that back, celebrating all its wonder, while the rest of us just flounder and have no one looking out for us. We don't have an opposition. We don't have people who are looking out for working class people. And I've just seen Jake Radcliffe's comment and I feel a bit sick.
No. Heidi and John. John's been an outstanding councillor and Heidi would be absolutely tremendous as well. And what an awful thing. So the news that's come through there is Sedgefield itself, which is quite an affluent town. John Robinson, who's been the councillor there for many years, brilliant person. His lovely wife Maxine has just died at the beginning of the campaign, which we were really sad about. And he's lost his seat there, and that's hurt, that one. So really sad about that. And you know what? I think it's another step on the, you know, where are we going as a Labour Party if people like John, who's a trusted councillor, can't get elected? It's not because of what he's done. It's not because of what he's done. It's because of this incessant attack that the Labour Party has had over the past 5 years on Jeremy Corbyn, followed up by an utterly bland, pointless, boring man whose only quality is ambition. And that person is Keir Starmer. You know, like, what a disaster he has been for the party. But it wasn't his fault.
Paul, I have to say on that, like in terms of what has replaced Jeremy Corbyn, I've had a conversation. I was on Radio 4 recently with the same fellow I was last time, who was a fan of Keir Starmer, and he started the conversation by blame. We were talking about the Hartlepool result, and he started the conversation by blaming Jeremy Corbyn, and he finished the conversation by saying, but you know what? We all need to work together. We need to stop the infighting, and we need to forget about Jeremy Corbyn. And I was like, I didn't bring him up. You did. The right of the party need to just take a look at themselves and realize that we're the ones who move for them all the time. We are always the people who compromise. And you're getting to a point now where you've pissed off that many people, they'll not be compromising anymore. They'll leave or they'll fight you. So you've got to get prepared for a fight or to have a completely diminished membership. And the thing is, now all the lefties who are the ones who go out and knock on the doors and deliver leaflets and do all the groundwork, they've served their purpose. Now this election's done. I guarantee you'll start seeing the erroneous complaints come in and people getting suspended again. And it's just infuriating because let's remember, they absolutely dragged Jeremy Corbyn across the coals. You know, he could do nothing right. And so we begged them to stop. We literally begged them to stop and just give him a chance, and they never did. So when Keir came in, as far as I'm concerned, I can only speak for Sedgefield, we all decided, right, let's give Keir a chance because we don't want to do the same thing that they did to us. And we gave him a chance and he squandered it by being horrendous, given no opposition, given no support to anybody, taken, you know, he doesn't need the money from the membership anymore because he's got his rich benefactors and all of that. And it was just really just taking us backwards so far. They need to have a look at themselves and stop blaming the left. Like I say, we're the ones who do all the moving. We're the ones who do all the compromising. I guarantee that stops now. And they'll see what it's like when the left don't compromise anymore. And I think they're in for a rude awakening.
You know what the sad thing about all this is, because I'm not really interested in the party political point scoring really. I'm I class myself as a socialist, but I'm not really interested in, and I wish we wouldn't do it. But I can understand where the people on the left are coming from. But what really makes me sad about all this is we're letting the Tories walk all over us while this is happening. You know,
we're not going to beat the Tories.
Oh no, I understand, and I completely understand that. I'm in a ward of 3 Tories, and they've always, it's always been Tory. It's a Tory area. But now we're looking at Tories walking all over the town. 13. They've got 13 seats now in the council. They put on 10 in this town. And that speaks to people in other areas of the town. They don't feel listened to by Labour.
Mm-hmm. And I entirely agree with you.
And they are walking away from us at every election, more and more and more, walking away. The real winner at this by-election was apathy. If you look at the votes, it was apathy. People are not even bothered voting. The people we need to get out to vote, the people we are standing for, we're speaking for, are not voting for us. And that is
I entirely agree.
That is sad. And it was sorry.
No, I was just I entirely agree, and I really think that is because we don't have an alternative at the minute. We have more of the same, and it's not point scoring within a political party. I want us to be able to work together. What I'm saying is we've tried, and we're sick of trying and being told no, or just flat out ignored and told we can't talk about stuff. It's really difficult to achieve. We're not achieving anything. And yet the party continues on down its path that it's going, which has led us here where people don't care because no one's doing the grassroots work. No one's doing the speaking to people. And I mean this from the top down.